We've been on last Sunday to a Krishna Das concert. You might have heard some of the music when you tuned in today. He's just like me, a disciple of Nim Karoli Baba and Ram Das. It touched me very much, and I don't know exactly what he said, but he said something what rough times we're going through and how much suffering there is in the world right now. So even as happy campers, I'd like to acknowledge this suffering that for so many is now part of our human experience. Here in this group, we don't want to deny the suffering when it's there. As I said many times, we are rather wishing to welcome everything as it is, and in that way, bring the light of love and understanding to our suffering if it still appears as suffering to me as a person. As long that is the case, we don't want to vanish that away with some spiritual concepts, non-dual concepts. I'm consciousness, nothing is touching me, la la la. That would feel ingenuine, at least to me, so. Just would like to acknowledge that it feels to many of us like a very bumpy ride these days, and that's okay. On the contrary, in my experience in non-dual circles, the very denial of one's own suffering due to spiritual or non-dual concepts is very often the case for continuous suffering. If we are not open to the possibility that there might be some pockets of separation hiding somewhere in our subtle bodies and our consciousness, we might run into a big trap of creating a new structure, a new happy, enlightened, free person. But very often still a person, a structure, a construction of the mind or the ego. In a way, sharing anything about truth, love, simplicity, beauty is always a slippery slope, because the danger is that I bring in new concepts that are memorized by the person and then used by the so-called ego to avoid, to continue its lifelong habit of turning away what is unpleasant. And the idea of we're all enlightened and there is nothing to do and we're already free is very, very tempting to the so-called ego, to turn away from what is actually here. So at least for me, I would like to share that I'm interested in freedom. And freedom includes the freedom, or is represented as the freedom to be real. It's synonymous for me, freedom and realness. Real is what is here now in my experience. If it's tainted or colored by ignorance, okay, that's no problem, as long we are open to acknowledge and to look openly, to be interested openly, honestly. We don't even need to tell anyone, but with ourselves, honestly within our own hearts. What's happening? How am I feeling? Does the fact of me knowing that I am, let's call it consciousness, here and now, is it my experience that this understanding is available in the midst of the chaos of life, in the midst of my mind, my emotions running crazy sometimes these days? The very allowing, the very welcoming of a disturbed mind, of disturbed emotions, of disturbed body is the presence of consciousness in my life. It's always paradoxical to speak about these things because consciousness is always available and I am this consciousness. But I have given myself the power in this game of life to pretend to be not consciousness. I have given myself the power to turn away from what is into a fantasy world, into a mental fantasy that wants to be things in a certain way. Pleasant, always pleasant, please. This is the mind's version of, or the idea of enlightenment, that once I am free or enlightened or awakened, I will have only pleasant experiences. But the freedom that we're speaking about here is like the background of all our experiences, at least for a start, the background. The neutral background on which the play, the game of duality, the movie, the dream, the creation, the world is unfolding. It's like a painting. The consciousness is the canvas and the painting is the created world. And for those of you who like art, if the art loving is mainly driven by a conditioned mind, we might only like very colorful, bright, light paintings, maybe all white with a few dots. But if we look at profound, deep art, you see there are always light and dark parts. There might be parts of the painting might be black. And the composition of all the colors, including the darkness, creates a beautiful painting, a beautiful picture. And the canvas is happily hosting, so to speak, holding the whole picture, the dark and the light. That's us, the canvas. The consciousness in which, or to which at that point, from the perspective of the background, in front of which the play of this world appears. And this play comes with pleasure and pain, with joy and sorrow, with a peaceful mind and with an agitated mind, with emotions of excitement and emotions of despair. And we, the canvas, the consciousness holding it all, we love it all. We love the whole drama, even when the ego may freak out. It's too much, I can't bear this craziness of the world, of my own mind. No, no, no. That's the drama that we as consciousness are actually enjoying. Like a good movie or play in a theater without some ups and downs, without the bumps in the play, it would be quite a boring movie or play. We may cry happily in the movie theater because we know it's not us. It's just actors playing the role. But even there, we happily forget that they're actors if it's a good movie. We love it. So in a way, the art of living happily is to stand our ground in that which is holding the drama. Which is shining its light freely, happily on the drama, including the pain that may come across to our body, to our mind, and to our life, family, friends. It's like two different dimensions meeting always. There's the background, the canvas, and then there is the play. Playing, we all playing our roles. The body mind, what I call the apparent separate person, the ego, is here in this play, and it might suffer greatly, but in the background, the awareness holding, viewing, enlightening the play of me is free, happily from the play. The problem is that we are all experiencing as human beings is that the background and the foreground are not apart. They are always one, they're touching. It's like the screen of the computer or the phone that we're looking at. The screen is actually black. We hardly notice when we look on the screen because we're so fascinated by the play. But nevertheless, even the screen is free, untouched by the play of the movie on the screen, like our satsang here. In the same time, it's intimately one. And this is our human experience. We can be free of suffering and in the same time experiencing tremendous pain in our body or in our feelings. The conditioned mind is so accustomed to try to create happiness, to create pleasure in the movie, in the play. All it knows, all it can ever know as a mind when it's conditioned with ignorance, all it can ever know is the play. So it tries to find the peace, the happiness, the joy in the play. So the conditioned mind is looking something to hold on to where it can find this promise of happiness, of pleasure, of joy, of love. It's desperately trying to hold on to something while actually right now it seems all this structure of a fixed world, of a fixed me as a person is crumbling dramatically. So in these times, especially like in all times, if we want to find stability, safety, happiness, we need to return to the background, to the canvas, to the screen. To ourself or our being. Like here, when we're meeting in our shared being, we're returning, and that feels wonderful to meet like that. The conditioned mind, the ego, will always try to ground itself in the movie, but there is always a danger that someone takes the remote and switches it off. And this separate person knows that. So it's always scared, it's always insecure, it's always lacking. It's always missing something, always feeling not good enough. So any attempt to ground ourselves in this physical world, in this appearance of the movie, it will never bring us lasting stability and safety. And without safety and stability, it will be very difficult to be happy and peaceful. So I'm suggesting to all of us to being open to the possibility when difficulty, when challenges come along in life, to observe the desperation of the conditioned mind to try to change the situation or to find some form of relief by changing the situation, by changing me, by adapting and manipulating the movie. This is the natural reaction of the conditioned, not knowing better mind. We can be loving and gentle and open to that because it just doesn't know better where to find stability, safety. But we can know, we can remember through understanding in our own experience that true safety and stability in the challenges of the drama is found in our being. In our universal shared being. I call that sometimes grounding in being, instead of grounding through potato chips. There was a very strong habit in my life, for example, when I was young. I couldn't get enough potato chips, trying to find some hold in this world. Didn't work out quite well with the potato chips, so I looked for some other approach. Now I still enjoy them sometimes. I'm not an ascetic. But I don't look for comfort or security or happiness or stability in them. Our true home ground of safety, security is in our being. in our self, if we want to call it that. And the courage to take the leap, to trust that groundless ground where the mind cannot enter, this courage, this trust in finding safety, security, and so forth, also peace, happiness, joy, love, comes from understanding, which is the direct experience of beingness. I am hammering this point a bit because understanding seems to be something that is happening in the mind. It seems to be something that we were taught in school is learning. To learn something is understanding, but no. Understanding is the non-experience of our beingness, where the universal wisdom is accessible. The door to some particular understanding seemed to have been closed. That's the game. And then through a moment of understanding, the door opens and we see that there was actually no door, or that it was always open. That's another paradox. So this understanding allows me to live the teaching, to welcome the challenging situation to my humanness. In the moment when it appears, it allows me to welcome the challenge with an openness. Out of that understanding that through grounding myself in being, I am always safe. In the very extreme, we could say, worst case, I lose this beautiful body of the actor. Bon. That's the very worst thing that could happen to me, but my being, our eternal beingness just goes on happily. Nothing to lose. But that doesn't work if we take it only as a new concept. I am eternal. Nothing can happen to me. And the test, if it's just a memory, a concept from a book or from a teaching, or if it's true understanding, that's what the dream, the play is about. It's like, oh, let's check in. Let's bring some turbulences to this flight. Ooh, hallelujah. How can I deal with this? Is my understanding sincere? And there comes the honesty with myself. I don't need to tell anyone. It can be my private secret that I'm maybe not quite as enlightened as everyone thinks. If I discover in the cave of my own heart still some insecurity, some fear, some lack, some boredom, some restlessness, wonderful, cool. Let's welcome it. Let's meet it with this understanding. The waves of life might be crashing over my head sometimes. That happens to all of us, believe me. We all have to go through our karma, we could say. But if we know that we cannot drown, we can actually enjoy the crashing of the waves over our head. That's understanding, that's freedom, not a manufactured, manipulated fantasy world of perfection, of no harm, no pain in the dream. There is the freedom for a start of the canvas from the painting. The background. I'm in the background, the awareness that is aware of my experience, of my thoughts, of my feelings, of the circumstances in my life. That's a great freedom already. There is some distance, some space that enables me to not get lost in the drama. I am, so to speak, able to take a step back as consciousness, as awareness, to witness this drama, including my own character, my own body-mind, my own apparent person. That is already a great relief because it's quite a funny movie. I am certainly quite stupid sometimes, and to see that is quite hilarious how we act in life sometimes. I would like to see that perfect human being that is without mistake, whatever that is. So even in this direct path of understanding, of our unchanging nature of consciousness, if we want to call it that way, has no process, no stages, there's no gradual awakening or stages of consciousness. Consciousness, as we are, is always unchanging, whole and complete, timeless, spaceless. But if someone is foolish enough like me to speak about these matters, it seems like there is a gradual unfolding. Like in this case, when I speak about the background and the movie, the awareness that we are being in the background, the substratum, like Ramana Maharshi said, and the play, that's a stage to come closer to the deeper truth even, because if we look at it now, if there is a background and a foreground, if I am aware of something, if reality is non-dual, unfortunately there is still two. There's someone that is aware of something. Which is usually a very natural unfolding, how it occurs for most apparent people. You don't need to make a big thing out of it. It's usually like that. We rediscover, oh, am I aware? Oh, yes. There is awareness and there is that which appears to awareness or in awareness. And from that perspective, we are much more likely to allow and welcome everything that appears in our awareness, including our stupidity, including our foolishness, including all of our conditioning that we have accumulated as an apparent person. It's a great relief to see it's like, oh man, this is all just nonsense. This is actually not me. It's just stuff that I have collected out of confusion and of innocent unknowing. The understanding of me being the awareness which is aware of everything that appears in front of me or in me will naturally, effortlessly dissolve the apparent duality. It will dissolve the apparent witness that may has been created along the way, the witnessing awareness. The very fact of being able to observe without grasping or pushing away any of my experience, the very fact of being the relaxed, open awareness in which everything is unfolding will dissolve the remnants of conditioning or ignorance. That's why enlightenment, if we want to call it that way today, is instant. Once it's clearly seen that I am that unchanging container of the whole existence, which is always unchanging, was never born, can never die, is always fulfilled and doesn't lack anything. This recognition, this remembrance, this realization stays the same forever. That's self-realization. But what does change with realization, with understanding applied to life, without anyone wanting to change, that's the magic, without anyone trying to do something to enlighten something, to transform something, the very understanding and applying of that understanding by allowing and welcoming and shining the light of our being on all of our human experience will decondition the body-mind. The apparent duality that remains. It's very important at the first stage, so to speak, or the early stages, as I described, as the background to see that my awareness, the awareness, universal consciousness, does not mind what's going on in my body mind, does not mind how ignorant or stupid I am. That frees me from this lifetime approach of most of us to become a better person. To overcome this ever sitting feeling in our hearts of I am not good enough. It can help us to relax with ourselves and see I am that which is aware, not that which I am aware of, including the conditioning in my own mind, in my feelings, in my body. That's very helpful. But here in this approach, this teaching, whatever we want to call that, that comes out here out of my mouth, we don't want to stop there. We want to stay open to allow this understanding to, so to speak, enlighten all of my human experience. It's certainly a relief to come to the recognition and the peace that comes with it, to be awareness, and to enjoy a non-dual state, presence. But it doesn't free me from negative thoughts, negative feelings. This ease in my body. And as long we are dreaming this dream together, it's much more fun to have a mind and a body and emotions that are matching our understanding of this non-lacking, fulfilled, happy, content awareness that we are. Otherwise, there is still a gap between awareness and me as a human being. This is a very subtle duality, or not so subtle, depending on the case. So we don't want to stop here, we want to bring it, so to speak, all together and take the next apparent step and allow, even from that understanding of being the awareness that is aware of everything, to not then fall again for the old ego trap coming through the back door, to turn away from my human experience, only into this non-dual state. Even though that might be a side effect for a while that may want to be enjoyed as awareness. That's fine. It's so sweet, this non-dual state of being consciously aware, that we may want to bask for a while in it, but eventually life comes for us, comes after us, and presents us again challenges. Can we be honest enough then to say, okay, there is still something that is triggering me, that is pushing a button in me? Or am I gonna just withdraw into non-dual awareness and refuse my experience? It's not gonna work for long, usually. Life is very intelligent. It's me, my own creation, pushing my buttons to free me from that which is not in line yet with my understanding. I came across these days through a beautiful term from the Buddhist teachings that I had forgotten. Another way to say, to describe the absolute that is not speakable, that I usually use the word consciousness or awareness. In Buddhist terms, often it's called the unconditioned mind. It's a very beautiful way to describe the integrated embodied freedom in the mind. The ignorant, the not knowing mind is the conditioned mind, is the idea of me being a separate person. But in Buddhist terms, where the word enlightenment is used very often, it is, at least in the non-dual traditions of Buddhism, understood that absolute freedom, enlightenment, is that unconditioned mind, free from its conditioning, not only knowing to be not the mind, but the mind, so to speak, knowing to be not the mind, free from its own condition, free from its own conditioning as a separate mind, as a person. And this unconditioned mind is not a mind anymore at all, we could say. It is consciousness. Because reality is one. So that which was pretending to be a mind, to be a person free of its conditioning, is free to express itself unconditionally. For example, in a human experience. That's true non-duality. There is no mind left. Another term often used, no mind. And then it sounds gradual, it isn't, but from the perspective of a person, it seems so. And then our experience of life doesn't need and doesn't have anymore a middleman, a mind, a person thinking, believing that it is doing something, responsible for something, acting, being in charge. Then there is complete freedom for consciousness to express itself freely in the apparent form of a body-mind. But it is the original state, the unconditioned mind, how the Buddhists say, that is acting, that has been always acting, that has been always in charge. Never ever was there this separate person. It's just the ignorance, the confusion of the conditioned mind that believed so, and then life expresses itself beautifully in harmony. And the freedom of the conditioning that comes just by allowing and welcoming the experience without grabbing and pushing away, that deconditioned mind actually is experienced like, oh, there is no separate person here. Everything is consciousness. The feeling and the thoughts based on a separate person actually leave. Freedom is not only freedom from the person with its negative, fearful, lacking feelings and thoughts. True freedom is a transformed person by having done nothing. That's the great paradox. Whatever we try to do to this person is strengthening the idea of the person as a separate entity. How more we want to try to fight the mind, to quiet it, to meditate it away, to transcend it, as more it becomes something, an ego. And this unconditioned mind, which is no mind at all, that's what we see in sages, saints, where the wisdom, the understanding is lived, is embodied. Their thoughts, their feelings, their expressions, everything is an act of beauty, of wisdom, of celebration. Even in the midst of pain, they still look grateful, graceful, and grateful. hard to find, we could say, these days, in this crazy peak of the nonsense in the dream, how I sometimes call it. And that when we speak about enlightenment, awakening, realization, it's a million ways to look at it. My definition that came to me a while ago, which is not my definition, of course, at all, nothing is mine, but it came to me like that, and that is for me the closest to how I would maybe like to describe when we use the term enlightenment, how I used it today, or the unconditioned mind. Is when what we think and what we feel and what we speak and what we act is one. It's all coming directly, unfiltered, unconditioned, without a middleman or a middlewoman, from consciousness. It expresses itself as thought, as feeling, which transmits into action or non-action. It's all in harmony. It's one. The unconditioned mind expresses itself freely as an apparent human being. And then life is a celebration. Pain or pleasure, darkness or light, is felt, is experienced. But it is all experienced deep down in our hearts. It is all experienced as consciousness, as love, as God. Everything is beautiful even when it's ugly. There is even love in the deepest despair. There is joy in frustration. The human experience is not only welcomed, but lived and expressed as that what we are, as one. And then we can party, soul party together. And if someone hits the toe and needs to cry, we'll still be happy crying. Or whatever happens. So, in this teaching, sharing that has kind of evolved over the last, I don't know, long time, 12 years or so. Dream, yes. The enlightenment version of contemporary non-duality, that I am awareness and my personality and my body and my humanness, is kind of irrelevant and doesn't matter, is a bit pale, a bit juiceless, a bit joyless to me. And my teachers are all great examples of an integrated, fully embodied, non-dual understanding, if we want to call it non-dual. These are just words. A life of happiness and harmony and love, independent of the circumstances. Oneness of humanness and consciousness. The conditioned, ignorant, unknowing, confused mind remembered to be unconditioned. Remembered to be no mind at all, no person at all. Remembered to never have been a separate person. Enjoying life, expressing itself in thought, in feeling, in sensation, in action. That's my wish, to us, to this beautiful group of us sharing these Sundays together. This vision of life of celebration in this truth, in this love, in this simplicity, as consciousness playing to be human. But playing, not refusing to play, understanding and then playing. I wish to play, and you're all invited. I have to say, it's always fascinating to me where all these words are coming from. Before the meeting, I'm sitting here, it's like, oh my, it's like empty mind, no mind. And then somehow I see you all, and my mind might have been playing with one or another idea a bit before, but usually never ever do I speak of what I might thought I would speak of. It's magic also to me. We are speaking, so to speak. This group, we are speaking, it just appears that this dude here is doing so, but it's us, our shared being. That's how it feels to me. Thank you. We have time for a question or two. Or a comment or anything. We have also time to sit in the timeless. Quietly.
Om Namah Shivaya. Do you hear me?
I hear you, Kaivalya. Nice to see you.
My voice is not so strong because of Mahashivaratri singing last night. I realized actually last night that I'm not interested anymore at all in pujas. I used to, and it's like it changed completely. I'm getting bored with pujas, but I still have a strong sense of devotion, like the masters that teach me, and you included, they generate such big heart feeling, full of devotion and love. And it's always surprising. It's like triggering the emotional body to a point. And in a way, there is now a sense that all the teachers are one consciousness, are like the universe sending me backward towards self. What do you have to say about the devotion? Does it create a sense of duality? Is it going to disappear, or is it fine?
Thank you.
And you see, right now I have tears coming.
Mm-hmm.
Like you really touch my heart.
Let them flow freely. This is also a way of unconditioning the mind. Those tears are very clearing, washing away the remnants of sense of separation. All path, even this is, I don't even know if that is true. I wanted to say this is mainly a path of understanding of jnana, but I'm not so sure actually. I don't think we have a limitation here. The path of devotion, of love, traditionally called bhakti yoga, and the path of understanding of wisdom, traditionally called jnana yoga, either way, when the understanding is deeply integrated, or the love and devotion is deeply felt, where the love is felt and the understanding is experienced, the two paths meet as one. We may start by devoting ourselves to a form, to a teacher, to a puja, to a ritual. But when the love is real, it is the experience of non-duality. The experience of non-separation is what we call love. If the devotion is full and complete, there is no room for someone to love something, and that's what you express. There is this, with it comes the understanding, the jnana. Oh wow, this is not the teacher in this form. They're all if it's authentic, it's one teaching, one consciousness, or one love. So what may start as a path of devotion, of surrendering one's apparent ego to somebody or some form, leads to what you are experiencing now. Since we have met deeply, I feel you're experiencing this where there is no difference anymore. Then there might still come the old habit of an afterthought, trying to squeeze it in a box, what's happening. But in the moment of love or understanding, there is no one. There is no kaivalya there. There is just that where words cannot enter. And this understanding, this love, has the power to uncondition deeply through those tears, traces of separation that were belonging to an apparent person, kaivalya. And when I look at my teachers like Ram Dass, Nemkaroli Baba, Jesus, Ramana Maharshi, we are here in Arunachala. Look at Ramana, how devoted he was to Arunachala, the most non-dual teacher we maybe had for centuries, like such a hardcore non-dualist, right? He was writing poems to the mountain, to a rock. Most beautiful expression of jnana as devotion to Arunachala. That's what you see in true embodied, integrated teachers. The meeting of jnana and bhakta. They are one. There is a few great teachers who have a great understanding that can express non-duality in a way that my tongue would probably get a strain or something. And then there is others who are overflowing with love. It's like they're pouring it out all the way. But sometimes there is still a distinction. Those masters that were guiding me, luckily, there are this fusion that also is expressed in India as Hanumanji. You see, I had for many years Jesus very, very dear in my heart. It's been my master teaching me for years quietly. And then I met Ram Dass. And I had this conflict, this trace of conflict in my heart, because Jesus was so dear to my heart, and now there was Ram Dass and there was Nemkaroli Baba. He gave me Nemkaroli Baba. He transmitted, if we want to call it that way. So suddenly Hanumanji was sitting as Nem Karoli Baba in my heart, and I felt so touched. Like you now, I've been overwhelmed with this joy, and there was this mind with its afterthought. Oh, but what about Jesus? And then I told Ramdas my doubt, and he told me, name Karoli Baba, because he had the same question. Name Karoli Baba told me, Hanumanji and Jesus are the same. And Hanumanji, Jesus, Nim Karoli Baba, Ramana Maharshi are great expressions of this oneness of the path of devotion and love and the path of wisdom and understanding. And when you have understood or felt the essence of the puja, you can access the puja within your own heart. You don't need the ritual in the form anymore. You don't need to make that fire. You don't need to throw in all the things into the fire, because you can do it within your own heart, resting in this understanding, in this love. You do puja within your own self. And you are happy, which is another word for understanding or love. I'm not talking about pleasure that we were talking about today, not the happiness of duality, the happiness of our shared being. That is love, that is understanding. It's so dear to you, there is no room for duality anymore. There is no one loving someone, something anymore. There's just love. And you can see this love then expresses itself. It's like the proof of the oneness of Bhakta and Jnana is that when you are so much resting in this love, insights of understanding, like there's just one teacher, reveal themselves to you as consciousness. So let this subtle doubt, just be washed and embraced and loved in this love. Don't feed the afterthought, trying to make something out of nothing. Just enjoy that love. All roads lead to Rome. There is this funny saying. In a way, it's what we're trying here. We may use many different roads, and I may use many different paradoxical ways to express the unexpressible, but it all leads to that silent understanding where there is no thing, no person left to understand or to experience love. It's just happening. And the mind will possibly try to make something out of it. But remember, when you were young, very young, when you were happy, you didn't even know that you were happy. You might just spend a whole day happy playing with or without your friends, and it didn't even occur to you that you are happy, or when your parents or anyone was holding you in love, it didn't even occur to us to think, oh, it's this or that. Where jnana and bhakta meet, and they always meet when it's authentic and real, love/understanding. It's best to, or very enjoyable to just remain quietly as that. True love and devotion reveals the understanding for lasting happiness. And true understanding reveals the nature of non-separation, of non-duality, to be love. In the old days, we would have said, God is love. It's a bit out of fashion, but I still like it. I hope you don't mind the term God. We know we're not talking about a man with a grey beard like me in some clouds.
Yeah, it reminds me of a saying that said that the cells of the universe, of matter, they hold together to make objects, to make bodies and forms and shapes out of love. Otherwise, they would just spread everywhere in the universe, separate. And it's out of love that they compact and make shapes for the game to happen.
Beautiful. I hope you enjoyed the party as much as I did. Thank you, everyone. It's such a joy to meet you all in this way, and if you like, we may meet next Sunday again.